Chapter 7 to 9 leave me with yet more questions, but they can mostly be summarized with why though? Why? Hi folks, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat, and today we're talking about Chapter 7 to 9 of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. After her bath, Feyre returns to the dining room. The two guys are still there as well. And she makes this observation that Tamlin is blooded with power. And I'm just like, this sounds really strange to me. Cold-blooded, warm-blooded, yes. There are a lot of things that work with blood, but blooded with power? That seems very peculiar to me. Anyway, Feyre refuses to eat and Tamlin actually gets up and fixes her a plate because he can't watch it anymore, I guess. And she is still stubborn about it. It's like, why does this guy even care so much? I mean, I don't understand the premise at all. A life for a life, okay. But then she now just lives with you and you have to feed her, clothe her and give her lodgings. And how does this make up for her killing your friend? I really don't get it. After a bit of a discussion, Feyre kind of apologizes for the murder, but only under duress. Again, very charming. And this girl just doesn't make any sense to me. Now she goes, why would I trust a single word you say? It's like, well, we've established, or you said, that fairies can't lie, so whatever he tells you should be true. I mean, he can omit stuff, yes. But if you ask the right questions and force the right phrasing, then he shouldn't be able to lie to you. So what is your concern here? And then it gets a bit weirder because Lucien and Tamlin show a lot of interest in Feyre, God only knows why. But they essentially act like a bunch of 12-year-old girls at a sleepover with like, oh, do you like somebody? And it's like, you're all grown-ups in this room, some of you possibly hundreds of years old, and this is the kind of conversation you feel necessary? They have a bit more of a conversation, and I just keep wondering about Feyre's behavior. So we've established that these guys are a lot more powerful than she is and that they're technically scary and she should be wary of them. And instead she just likes to snap at them. Every opportunity she gets, she's kind of nasty, and it's like, maybe that's not the best way to handle the situation, but no, Feyre has zero patience, zero self-control. She just snaps at everybody. After being forced to eat and not being enchanted, crazy how you don't drug all of your guests, but whatever. So after that, Feyre heads to bed, but not before tearing apart some curtains to make a little trap by the door, or a warning system, which then gets triggered the next morning when Alice comes in. She's pretty pissy about it. It's like, yep, solid plan there, Feyre. While Alice is fixing up Feyre's hair, she stares into the mirror and we get like 2 full paragraphs about her thinking about what parts of her resemble her mother and what parts resemble her dad. I'm just like, wow, literally nobody sits down to think about this. At least not when they should be preoccupied with more important things. But she's currently comparing her mundane human beauty to the high fae. Feyre heads downstairs and looks at a couple of paintings, and Tamlin manages to sneak up on her to have a conversation. And this is actually a recurring thing. Whenever somebody tries to talk to Feyre, they always seem to sneak up on her. She never notices anybody coming her way until they actually talk to her and startle her. And another thing in this conversation, Tamlin never actually just says anything or speaks. He always snarls, hisses, growls. Is an odd attempt at making him appear more beast-like when he's clearly not. Okay, he can turn into a beast, but you know, you can still talk like a person. It's not just the way you talk that would turn you into a beast, and his actions are not beast-like at all, so that kind of falls flat for me. We do learn, however, that the masks that Feyre likes to make fun of are a leftover from a masquerade when a blight hit the high fae that makes magic behave strangely, and all of those masks are actually fused to their faces. So they would rip them off if they could, but they can't until they figure out how to fix this blight. In regards to this blight, Feyre also wonders whether the High Fae would have ever told the humans that something is affecting the land and magic. But then she also tells you, oh no, it didn't take her long to know the answer. It's like, first off, you don't know anything. You're assuming. But then I guess she is assuming correctly, because if humans don't have magic and this blight travels very slowly and it is a weakness to the High Fae, why the hell would they tell the human beings? Also, in that regard, why did they tell her? Yes, she lives there now, she might be stuck there, maybe. But she's still more or less the enemy. She just killed one of your buddies and she only apologized after more or less being forced to, and it didn't sound like she meant that. Why would you share something this essential and possibly detrimental to your whole species with somebody who has shown that she is happy to murder somebody just for being part of your species? By the beginning of chapter 8, Feyre has decided that she needs to talk to somebody so they can plead her case with Tamlin and make him realize that she would be better off somewhere else, or that there must be a loophole in the treaty somewhere and that he could possibly just send her back or send her away or something. More on that in a second, but while she's contemplating this, she goes out for a walk and suddenly her instincts kick in and they actually do something. She feels like she's being followed, she can hear something behind her, but then she never quite catches it, just like a silver glittering in the corner of her eye or something. And I guess she encountered the true horror of this estate. Children. We don't actually get to see those children, but, you know, scary, scary things out there. But then, because time seems to flow very strangely, she literally just left from having breakfast in her room. She goes out for this walk, feels like she's being followed on her short walk, and then before she can catch those kids, Alice calls her back in for lunch. I'm like, what did you do in those hours? Like, you literally looked at pictures, you had a couple of minutes conversation with Tamlin, and then you went out for a walk. Unless you went actually hiking for 4 hours, how the hell did you end up at lunchtime already? Later, we're back at the dinner table, and boy, does this girl ask stupid questions. At some point, Tamlin points out that she's good at hunting, or that she enjoys hunting, and Feyre instantly snaps at him and it's like, no, she doesn't enjoy this, it's a necessity, and how does he even know that? And aside from the obvious, well, you killed my friend while hunting, and you're clearly the one who's providing for your family, duh, he explains to her that he can tell by her hands and the calluses on them that she's the one doing the work in the family. I'm just like, this question is so stupid. Of course he knows you're the one hunting in this family. What? I was so close to just hitting my head on the desk, seriously. While looking over the dinner table, Feyre also shows a lot of resentment towards the rich. She keeps contemplating, oh, I could have dressed myself for a year with this curtain, or what this curtain is worth, or with this golden plate I could have fed my family for months, or whatever. And I'm just here wondering, is this actual resentment about things being distributed so unfairly in general? Because it feels more like it's very personal. She always says this in specifics, like, I could feed my family for a month with this, I could do this or that with something. So it always feels like it's just related to her. Like, why does this person have so much and I don't? And it's not about the general issue of the distribution of wealth. So yeah, a bit of a selfish character there. Once again, Lucien and Tamlin show a lot of interest in Feyre, and I have no idea why. She has literally given them no reason to be this nice to her. I mean, okay, Lucien wanted her dead and told Tamlin that it would be better to just kill her instead of keeping her, but whatever, that was Tamlin's decision. But aside from that, they actually ask her questions about her life, and they seem to be genuinely interested, and I do not understand why. Aside from being the woman who killed a friend of theirs, she's also just rude to them most of the time, so, well, their choice of house guest, I suppose. So Feyre decides that the person she should plead her case with is Lucien, and I don't see it. Chapter 9 starts with Tamlin talking to her again and being really, really nice and accommodating. And she more or less runs off because she knows that Lucien is at the stables, so she can go and plead her case with him. It's like, why don't you just talk to the guy who is this nice to you and who spared you, and instead you go for the guy who opted for, hey, let's kill her because she murdered our friend. I mean, sure, he wants you gone, but what makes you think that the second you set foot off this estate that he wouldn't try to kill you himself? Tamlin decided to spare you. That doesn't necessarily mean that Lucian is bound to the same thing once you're off the estate. And also, he could just get you killed by letting you off the estate if any other fae or faerie would murder you. So, why would you talk to this guy instead of Tamlin? Feyre finds Lucian at the stables and he asks her along for a hunt. Feyre hasn't been riding a horse in years apparently, but never mind. Clearly that's something you don't forget, even if the last time you rode a horse was when you were 8. I wouldn't know, but I feel like the gap between I learned riding when I was a kid and actually hunting on a horse or going on a patrol on a horse are two rather different things, and the odds of falling off your horse and breaking a leg or your neck seem pretty high to me, but again, I don't know anything about riding, so. Also, when he asks her along, I totally expected something like this to happen, like a hunting accident. He startles her horse or something and she falls off and breaks open her skull or something. There is no hunting accident. I'm sorry to report. I thought there was actually something happening here, but there's not. But Lucian sees right through Feyre's master plan, but outright tells her that he can't do anything for her because Tamlin made his decision, and that's what it is. Here's the other big thing that I really don't understand. Both Tamlin and Lucian now are just happy to share all kinds of information with Feyre. Once again, she is not their friend, and she could potentially use anything they say against them at some point, especially if both of them think, oh well, she might try to murder us at some point, because she has shown quite some hostility. But they just keep talking and chatting away, and it's like, whoa, we can't wait to tell you all of this info that you will probably need further along the plot or further into the story. Even though it makes no sense for them to be so sharing or this caring towards Feyre. Just a random side note, because when Feyre talks about Lucian and describes him, apparently he has bright red hair but also sun-kissed skin. I'm sorry, but if you've ever seen an actual redhead, we do not come with sun-kissed skin. It just doesn't work. We have pale as heck and lobster red. There is no sun-kissed in between. And more on the let's just tell her everything, because Feyre asks for details about his abilities and Lucian just tells her. There are no secrets, and I mean, okay, say the fairies can't lie is actually true and he can't make things up. He could also just keep his mouth shut, but he doesn't do that either. While there is no hunting accident, at least something moderately exciting happens at the end of chapter 9. Something comes stalking out of the woods and even Lucian seems to be worried. It's the kind of creature that keeps whispering to you and tells you that you should look at them, but if you do, then they become real and you're dead. So Feyre and Lucian just sit in their horses staring ahead like, oh, nothing's happening here, nothing is happening here. Yeah, so overall, not an awful lot happens in chapters 7 to 9 either. And the most exciting thing so far happened just outside in the forest. And we don't know when we will be back there or when this will actually come back into play. So all we've learned is that Feyre doesn't know when to be nice to people. She likes snapping at people. Her master plan is kind of rubbish. And we've learned that high fae really like talking and taking care of people apparently, for whatever reason. So all in all, I can say that Maas needed some things to happen to have these people stuck in a certain place together, and she needed Feyre to know certain things. Whether it makes any sense that people tell her this or that these things happen, doesn't matter. They need to happen for the plot, so they happen. Thank you so much for watching all of this complaining. Well, maybe it will get better from here on out and I have to complain less, but given the world building so far, I'm not so sure that it will happen. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week with another video. Like and subscribe if you want to help the channel out. And let me know whether you noticed any more holes in the world building for A Court of Thorns and Roses. Bye folks!